Hello my gorgeous friends on the internet, how are you all doing? So welcome once again to this exciting tutorial. So in this tutorial we are going to be validating the form which we designed in the previous lesson, and this is actually the outcome of what we got after much designing, after the coding and all that. So I'll go back to my emulator and you can see we have the login form and we have an email address, and we can also type in some text input inside. We also have a password you can type. We can also make the password visible or invisible by clicking on this eye icon here. You can see now it's invisible. You can also click on it to make it visible. But now you see, if we try to click on this login button, nothing actually happens because we haven't done any validation to this form. So in this lesson we are going to be focusing on the validation part and all that. But in case you haven't watched this video, I suggest you go back and watch this particular awesome form design. Or better still, I'm going to put the link in the description box below so that you can easily access it. So now I'm going to minimize this. So we have the email address, and if you could remember in our previous lesson, for those who followed along, we have the email address. I gave it an ID of test email so that I'll be able to get the test input, that is the value which the user passed inside, and also give the password a test password ID, and the login button I gave it an ID of submit. Okay, so now we are going to use these IDs to validate this form. So going out from this activity login layout file, so I've got inside my login activity, I'm going to get the three variables for the email, the password, and the submit button. So I'm going to use the general method which every one of us know. So I'll give it a name, email. So using find view by ID. Okay, so I'm going to pass in the widget type. And from the lesson we actually use the test input edit test as the widget. Okay, we use the test input edit test. So this is what I'm going to pass there. So I will go back, and inside here I'm going to type the test input edit test and then get the variable. Also do the same thing for the password. And finally for the button, so I'm going to give this button send. So this is a button actually. Okay, submit. Okay, so I've gotten all the variables. So now I'm going to add an on-click listener to this button send, and then run all the and then insert all the validation statement that is going to be executed when the user clicks on the submit button. So inside, I don't want to create a function for this. If not, I can just go ahead and create a function and do the validation. But I want everything to just be inside the on-click listener of the button send, so that for easy simplicity, so that we can all understand. So I'm going to say button send dot set on click listener. Okay, so be sure to select the first one with this curly braces and 3 dots inside. So inside here now, I'm going to validate the email and password. I'm going to check if the email and the password are empty. If the values are not empty, then we can do other things. But first, I'm going to check if both of them are empty. If they are empty, I want to throw an error. So I will say if email.test.toString is equal to an empty string, then we can just run, maybe throw an error. But I don't like using this method, so I'm going to use a much more simpler and more realistic way. So I will say if test utils Okay, I'm using test dot is empty. So now you can see it's taking one argument, which is the char sequence, and it must be a string. So I'm going to pass in the email dot test dot to string. So I'm converting this to a string, and then so if the test utilize, if this email address is empty, so I want to throw an error inside the email address. So I will say email dot error equal to email feed cannot be empty. So this error is going to execute if the user clicks on the submit button without filling this email form, this email feed, sorry. So the next one, I'll use the else if statement to validate for the password. So I'm going to check if, okay, let me do for email first. So if the email address is not a valid email address, and let's just assume the user passed in a value and then click send, but the value the user passed is not a valid email address. It does not have this at gmail.com, at google.com, or at your website.com and all that. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to use a patterns for this. So these patterns help us to validate any type of input widget. So patterns dot, you can see it's taking email address, domain name, IP address, phone, web URL, and all that. So since I'm validating for email address, I'm going to select the email address and then set my matcher dot matcher, and the matcher is taking one argument, which is the input, the charter sequence. So I'm still going to pass on the email dot test dot to string, because that's what we want to check for validation. Then outside this curly braces, I'm not going to pass in the last one, which is dot matches. So after that, I'm going to run the error, okay, inside the email address. So I'll say email dot error equals to, okay, invalid email address. Okay, but this code now is going to return true because I've not put a not. So what I'm going to put here is a not. So what this means is that if the email address, the value inside this email feed is not a valid email address, then run this. But assuming I remove this one, like, to just treat it as a valid email address and it just proceed without any restriction. So I'm going to put, if it's not an email address, return this. But I forgot to put something here, is the return statement, because once this error throws, we don't want the user to continue by filling other forms. So we just want to throw that error and then return the user back to the form for them to fill it. So I'm going to put a return statement here. So it will be return at set on click listener. So once the user puts in a invalid value, is going to throw that error and then require the user to still input a valid data there. So I'm going to pass the same thing here. Okay, and then lastly, the next step, sorry, is not the last one. The next step is for the email validation. So I'm going to check if the password validation. So I'm going to check if the password feed is empty, just the same thing we did here. So instead of me like creating something new again, I can just copy this. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to change this email to password and also copy the error. Okay, and then post in the password here. So password cannot be empty. I'm just going to change this. Okay, that's it. So next on the line is to check if this password is less than or equal to 6 characters, because we don't want the user to put a password that is not strong. So we want the password to be greater than 6 characters, not less than or equal to 6 characters. So I'm going to use an else if statement also. So I will check for the validation here. So if else if password dot test dot to string dot the length. So I'm getting the length of, that is the number of characters in the password. So the length is less than or equal to 6. So we don't want it to be less than or equal to 6. I want to throw an error. So I'm going to say password dot error equals to let's say this password is not strong. Okay, this is a weak. Please select this. Okay, please make your password strong. Okay, so now I'm going to return, and I'll click listing on this. So, and finally is the S statement. So this S statement is the statement that is going to run. Everything inside this curly braces is going to execute if all these things evaluates to false. So let's say the user passed in a string here, and the email which the user passed is a valid email. The user also passed in a password, and the password is greater than 6 characters. So we want to actually validate this form. In some situation, maybe you are storing the form in a database, you are doing some kind of authentication for real life applications, then you can actually run all your code here, but I would prefer you put them in a function and then call the function inside this else statement. But now I'm not going to be doing that. What I'm going to be doing is just to show a toast that log in successfully. So seeing that toast, now you know that this user have passed in the whole values that have been filled correctly. So I'm going to say okay, so I'm running a toast here, so I will say login successfully. Okay, so I can say all data has been processed. Okay, so now I'm giving it the length, how long I want the toast to stay. So I want it to be long, and then I will show this toast. Okay, so that is all. You can see how the code, how simple it is to validate the form. We have the email, the password. I got it from this login form. You can see the ID here, and also I got the submit button, and I set an on click listener to the submit button, and using the first if statement to validate if the email address is an empty string, and also check for another condition to check if the email is a valid email address, and also checked again if the password is actually empty or not, and also check the if else statement to see if the password is less than or equal to 6. If it is, then throw an error, but if it's not, then just validate the form and process everything for the user. So I'm going to run this code so that you can see the output. So I'm going to open my emulator here. Okay, so the project has been built, so we can see it now in my emulator. So let me check for validation. First, I'm going to leave the string everything empty, and then click on this button to see the error. Okay, so we are getting an error. Email cannot be empty. That is because this field is empty. And the password, okay, it's not checking the password now, it's only checking the email feed. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to pass in a value. So let's say ABCD. Okay, and click on login. You can see it's no more showing us that email is empty. Now it's showing us that invalid email address, that is now executing this email address condition which we did here. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to make this a valid email address. So I'm going to type in my email address. Okay, so this is my email address. So I'm going to send it again. You can see there's no error is showing there. Now the error has moved down to this password. We'll click on the password. Now we're going to see that password cannot be empty. That is, you need to pass in a value. So I'm going to pass in a value that is less than 6. Okay, this is 5, and let's see again. It's still showing us error. Please make password strong. So let me make it 6 and see. We are still getting the error. Please make password strong. That's because from this validation here, I actually say that if the password is less than or equal to 6, and in this case is equal to 6, and we are still getting the error. Very nice, very nice. So now I'm going to increase this password and see what the output is going to be. So hola, we are getting the login successfully. All data has been processed. That is, it has successfully validated all this email, the email and the password. So everything now is okay. The user has actually complied with everything we asked him or her to do from this code. So you can see how easy it is to actually create a form, a good looking a validation form. You can see login successfully. So this method, you can actually do a database where you can store users data. Maybe if you're using Firebase for your back end, you can do some authentication, authenticate users and all that. But in case you want to learn something like that, put it down in the comment box below. I'm going to do my best to create a video on Firebase authentication so that we all can learn from. So thanks for watching, and do well to subscribe and share this video. And I hope you learned something interesting. See you guys next time.